Over the years of running the SiteShed podcast, I've had the privilege of speaking with hundreds and hundreds of amazing business operators from all over the planet. The ones that seem to be really successful are the ones that have a really dialed in, I suppose, perspective on their profit margins. And it's a conversation that we have constantly within the community. However, guys, I can tell you right now, understanding what your profit margins are and making sure that you are encompassing all of your expenses and things like that into your product value, product sale, whatever it is. It's so important, guys. So in this podcast today, you're actually going to learn how to understand and how to, I suppose, equip yourself with the right knowledge and the right tools to make sure that you're making healthy profits. This is the first part of the Ethical Sales Delivering Healthy Margins series that I'm conducting with my co-host, Mr. Jon Dale. It's a brilliant series, guys, and this is really designed to help you guys build a solid framework so that you're not going backwards. Enjoy this episode. Please leave some comments wherever you see this come through on social media. I look forward to hearing what you have to say. And if you're not in the group, get in there so you can join the conversation. Today's podcast has been proudly brought to you by Tradie Web Guys. Tradie Web Guys work with tradespeople only on their websites and marketing solutions to help them stand out from their competition. Everything from web design through to SEO, search engine marketing, content creation, you name it, guys. It is a customized solution for trade-based organizations and it's fantastic. Head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/apply, fill in the form and let's have a conversation. It'll be the best thing you could possibly do to kickstart 2019 the right way.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the SiteShed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Welcome, Jon, to the SiteShed podcast.
Thanks, Matt. It's nice to be here.
Absolutely. This conversation's been a long time coming.
Hasn't it just? We've known each other off and on a little bit for a while. I've seen you around.
We have many mutual colleagues, friends, associates, so it appears.
Yeah, we didn't know.
Oh, no. So, Jon, you're from Small Fish Coaching. You specialise in trades. Give us a little bit of a spiel about your background and how you ended up there.
My background, well, look, I had a degree in chemistry and then didn't like chemistry and worked in the IT industry in sales roles, which I didn't think I'd wanted to do either. I didn't want to be in sales. And I found I was good at it, enjoyed it, moved up through the ranks, hated corporate life, didn't like being a suit. And I sort of saw business coaching and thought, I could do that. Work with decent, real people in the real world, not drive into the city in a suit in the morning and then come home back to real life at night, Yeah. So I went off and did it and loved it. I've been doing it for 13 years now.
You're thinking, man, just what the world needs, another business coach.
Another business coach. Well, back then they weren't quite so common. I thought it was at the head of the curve, Everyone's caught me up now. Millions of us.
Classic. Oh, no, look, it's good. I mean, one of the big things that we like to preach, to our clients, and obviously we do it ourselves, is the importance of niching. And we typically find anyone that tries to be everything to everyone ends up being nothing to anyone. So it's good that I think it's good that people take the time and invest all their effort and resource and energy into really trying to get some traction in the industry, regardless of what vertical you're in.
Yeah, look, and I took advice from my coach, right, from Taki Moore,
right,
to me, and it was his process that made me select tradies. He said, pick types of business that you've worked with and helped and liked.
Exactly.
I went back through all my customers and thought, I like the tradies.
Yep.
Basically.
Yeah, nice.
Here I am, committed myself and off we went.
So, I mean, there's a million things that we could talk about. Obviously, you've got quite a comprehensive program. However, today we've decided to talk in this series about margins. So how to leverage ethical sales and how to achieve healthy margins.
Yeah.
I strangely enough, I haven't really done many topics on sales over the years with the podcast. We've done loads on different marketing things and initiatives and whatnot. But sales has been something that we haven't really put a whole lot of focus on. So I think this is going to be quite a well-received series. So, Jon, we've designed a series here based around ethical sales and delivering healthy margins. We split it into few different episodes. We're talking about where is your power. The next one is power in process. And the final episode is going to be resisting the pressure.
Yeah.
How come you've come up with those as topics?
Look, I see it as a big problem for people, Most trades business owners when they're doing sales focus very heavily on price. Your customer says, "Hi, can you give me a quote?" Right? Whether that's to replace the toilet or, to build a house, that's kind of where they lead with. All the information in the media talks about getting 3 quotes and focuses on price and not paying too much. So all everyone thinks about is price. And in truth, that's not what helps people make a buying decision. And that intense focus on price from a trades business's perspective means you get skinny margins. If you lead with price and all you've got to talk about is price, you end up discounting, you end up with shit margins, and you have a frustration in your business, where you don't make the money you feel like you should be making for the work guys and yourself are doing, or your team, your guys and your girls, careful, are doing. Right? So it's frustrating. So I want to help people guard against that, right? And you can guard against it by doing sales properly, right? By doing it right, by being disciplined and methodical and professional about your sales and about not just focusing on price. That's what
before we jump into the first episode, I'm curious to hear if typically when you start dealing with clients or new clients anyway, is there a bit of a disconnect between, let's say, what they think they should be charging and what they actually should be charging across the board?
Yeah, not with all of them. Sometimes I get people who are quite happily charging loads, but quite often people are undercharging.
Right.
And it's one of the first places I look, ask them what they're charging, compare it to my little knowledge base of what other trades in similar positions are charging, and tell them if you're undercharging, we need to fix that up.
I know over the years, I've been through various sales training programs with different companies and those kind of things. And it's quite a revelation when you put into perspective what you actually need to be charging just to break even. And sometimes, that figure alone can cause a lot of negative self-talk and I suppose trying to talk yourself out of certain things. I know you've left behind a document here, the Big Number Tracker, which is for your listeners out there, you can head across to either the show notes or the resource page of the site shed and you can get hold of that. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about, or is that going to be one of the topics we're talking about? Are we going to be talking about understanding that breakdown?
No, I'll talk about it briefly now. Yeah, so the Big Numbers Tracker is a dashboard tool. It's a spreadsheet with a few spreadsheets in it. And it's for tracking the big numbers in your business and looking at the overall health of your business, right, by looking at its numbers, right? So we look at revenue and profit and what your gross margins are. And we look at your sales funnel and your marketing tracker, right? Are you doing enough marketing? And we look at profitability. We look at your cost base, understanding what your people cost you. We look at your overheads, understanding what they're costing you. And we break that down into a break-even analysis. So on a weekly basis, are you making money?
Yeah.
And understanding that stuff can then help you understand what you need to be charging in order to be profitable.
We may be going down a bit of a rabbit warren here when on this comment, but I've realised over the last couple of years, especially, that one of the fundamental, I suppose, strengths that I've been able to develop within my own business, and one that's been made very apparent with all the people that I speak with on the show, is that they do have a bit of a structure, process, framework around regularly revisiting their numbers and their figures and the stats and their data in order to keep a track on it, in order to stay focused for whatever that end goal might be for said company, person, so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's very important to keep an eye on your numbers, I think.
Yeah.
And I think there are a lot of things that take bites out of your margins. It's easy for people to go into a quote and put, take their cost, the rate they pay their guys or girls, and then add some on top and think that that's enough and forget that there are so many other costs that you wear in your business. Your overheads, right? Business coach, very important expense. Mm-hmm. Marketing and your website, insurance, admin, vehicles, your accountant, your bookkeeper, tools, all that stuff. That's before we think about mistakes and being rained off and all that stuff. So there's a lot of things that take chunks out of that margin. You can be left with nothing.
Yeah. I mean, and then even beyond that, the things we just typically would never think about, like phone bills, electricity, even the bare basics, it all
even travel time, driving between jobs. if you don't allow for that in your pricing, you guys can be driving around between jobs for 3 hours a day if you're not careful,
Right.
Not charged out. So you still have to pay them, though.
So why don't we dive into episode 1, which is Where is Your Power? I'm not sure if you've listened to many episodes of the show before, but I have had a gentleman on the show called Al Levy, who's the 7-power contractor out of the US, and he's been on the show loads of times, more than anyone actually. And he's got he has a framework within his program which helps you break down different areas of departments of the business. And one of them is understanding everything's broken into power. So it's like the people power, the HR power, and all these different areas of the business.
Yeah, okay. I haven't come across.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
but
I've nicked his word, have I?
No, well, maybe. I don't think it's going to be too closely assimilated. But I'm curious, what's the fundamentals of this episode, and what are we, as a bit of an overview for the listeners there, what are we going to be covering?
Well, in the 3 episodes, I'm going to cover 3 things. I'm going to cover, this one is talking about having power, right? And how having knowledge and marketing gives you power in a sales process and a negotiation. And all too often, when you go into a sales situation, you feel a bit like Oliver Twist, you've got your cap in your hand, and you're going, please, sir, give me some business, and you don't have any power, right. That confidence, which is not a good place to come from when someone like me is saying you need to charge a bit more, or you need to charge as much as possible. So this episode particularly is about preparing yourself so that you don't feel quite so weak, quite so like a beggar, and you feel stronger and confident and a bit more in control.
Yep.
The other 2 episodes go a bit deeper into understanding your value and your process, and then resisting discounting pressure. Okay,
cool. And at any stage in this series, are we going to be talking about the mindset behind charging more?
Yeah, a little bit. In this first one, probably. This is what the power is. This is about having the mindset of, I'm not weak. I don't need this, and I won't get caught off guard when the person says you're too expensive.
Okay, cool.
Which is a horrible situation to be found in, right? And they almost always say it. Whether it's true or not is a different matter, I think.
So when we're talking about like understanding where your power is as the service provider, you're right when you say typically, very often you might walk onto a project, and if you haven't got the right mindset or the right, I suppose, approach, then you do kind of look like you're on the back foot a little bit there, seeming a little bit needy.
Yeah, or you can feel like that anyway, right? I think
you're right.
That's a big part of it. You can feel like that, which means you're not confident when you respond or when you explain yourself.
Okay. And so let's jump right in then. I mean, how do we break this down? How do we establish where our power is? How do we become confident? How do we present with authority?
Okay, well, it starts by knowing, right? Knowing how much you charge and understanding how you charge and how much you charge and being able to explain it to your customer, and then understand how much everybody else charges. Mm-hmm. My experience says most trades businesses charge quite similar amounts. Electricians all charge about $90 an hour. Plumbers, something similar. Builders are usually a bit lower per hour and then have a margin on top of other trades. And they're not that different, but you can be confronted by somebody who says, I'll give a builder as an example, you're $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 more expensive than somebody else. Mm-hmm. And that just leaves you confused, uncertain. You don't know whether they're lying or not. You don't know what you've done wrong. You don't know, can someone really be that much cheaper than you on this size of a project? You don't know, right? So the more you understand, the more you can have an insight into whether that's true or whether somebody else has made a mistake or whether you've made a mistake. And you can be more confident. So understanding that you have an hourly rate and a margin, or you have meterage rates and where they've come from. Understanding what that is and that your price, one, is reasonable and fair, for you running a business. Understanding that your price is reasonable and fair and you're not robbing anybody or being greedy. That's a good place to start. Understanding what everyone else is charging and how you compare to them is a good place to start. If you're the most expensive, but you're the best, you're probably in the right spot. You should be being expensive. If you're a bit shit, maybe you have to be cheap.
So, fundamentally, as a starting point, what I'm basically hearing is go through and fill in the big numbers tracker and have 100% clarity over your costs.
Yeah. Start with the big numbers tracker, understand your costs, how they truly are, and understand how much you need to charge to make a profit, to have a sustainably profitable business. Then also understand what other people are charging. It's no use having stupid costs and realizing you have to charge stupid money and being out of the ballpark and more expensive than everybody else.
So
much better that people will pay that.
So how do you go about that?
Well, you go understanding your own costs. You fill out the tracker, right? You understand what you pay your people, and then you load on all the other costs. So if you pay someone $30 an hour, he's really costing you more like 60.
Right.
By the time you've worked out, downtime and training and things like that. So understanding those costs, I will help you with. I've got some videos online that talk you through that process.
But then what about understanding what others are charging?
Yeah, ring your mates up and ask them. Yeah. Most people have come through an apprenticeship and know enough other tradespeople to be able to ring somebody up and say, what do you charge? Right? We're not really all fighting cutthroat competition here. Most trades businesses are in business, and they know other people in the same trade and don't mind helping each other out. So go and ask.
I remember doing this exercise at a company I worked at a while ago, a plumbing company, and we went through something similar, big numbers tracker, whatever it was called back then. And we basically worked out that our break-even cost, it was residential maintenance, so there was some relatively high costs associated, office staff, high-pressure water jetting equipment, locating equipment, all that kind of expensive stuff. But the break-even point, and this is mine, was going back probably close to 10 years, it was about, I think it was $285 as break-even. That's without even putting a profit on top. And that was 10 or so years ago.
Per hour or per day?
Per hour.
Yeah. It's easy for it. Yeah. The trackers I'm doing with people are showing numbers like that.
Yeah.
If you want to pay the boss a salary because he needs to be spending time not on the tools, you have an admin person, some insurance, some vehicles, almost before you've started, you're up to 200K a year.
But I find it really comical.
Chop that down.
It's comical. It's funny when you're looking at all this crap, this clickbait stuff you see coming across the internet, which is talking about how plumbers and brickies make the highest money at $90 an hour, whatever it is, and you think if they were charging $90 an hour as like as a business, they're dead within 6 months.
Well, yeah, or at least not having a really happy time, right? Or they need 6 or 8 people at 90 an hour to cover the overheads. And sometimes that's how it works. There's always these two conflicting forces in terms of price. You need to charge enough to cover everything, but you can't be too much more than everybody else.
Yeah. If
everyone else is charging 90 an hour, you can't go and charge 150. You might get away with 100 by saying we're a bit better, but there's a fairly narrow band, I think, of kind of acceptable charging.
I think as well, there's a big difference between, the type of business. You get a lot of people that go, well, I charge $90 an hour, but I'm contracting to a company, for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week kind of thing. And in which case, that's fine. Yeah, and when you're talking about actually running a business, it's completely different.
Yeah, it's totally different. And that's part of what I mean about understanding who your competition is,
Right.
So and it might not be an hourly rate. We shouldn't fixate on an hourly rate. It might be, you might have a fixed price way of quoting. You might charge by meterage rates. And the bigger companies will be charging more than the smaller guys. One guy working out of the back of his van, doing his own admin at night is going to be cheaper. He's going to have fewer overheads, but he's going to feel more risky to his customers than somebody who's got, a bit of an organization and some infrastructure to back up both the customers and his team, and then you go to the big companies and they're more expensive again, right?
We interrupt this podcast today to talk to you very quickly about Tradie Web Guy's content creation program. That program has been designed specifically for trade-based organizations as a way that you guys as trade business owners can start creating content that enables you to engage better with your customers and your potential customers. It will enable you to build trust and build rapport because what you're doing is you're investing in educating them. Biggest problem that we see with our customers today is that they're not regularly updating their websites. And that's a problem because first of all, the search engines are looking for that. And second of all, potential customers are also looking for it. Tradie Web Guy's content creation program has been specifically designed to help you get regular, relevant content on your website consistently every month. We know that it's hard when you're out there on the tools, and we know that sometimes you don't always have the time to be able to do these things yourself. So we're taking it off your hands for you. It's a service that we're offering for you guys. We want to make sure that you're getting this done because we know how important it is. Anyway, head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/content, fill in the form, and one of our representatives will come back to you. What comes after knowledge?
What comes after knowledge? God, I've lost my notes. Marketing is the next one.
Right.
And there's power in doing enough marketing. And what I mean here, right, this is back to feeling like you're weak and begging. If you go into a sales situation and you really need that sale, or you really need that job or that project, you're in bad shape, right? You don't have any power. You're in quite bad shape for when the customer says you're too expensive or says that's a lot, isn't it? But if you've got loads of other opportunities to bid on and to propose for, then you're in much better shape. And you can say to somebody, no, I'm not too expensive. You can afford to lose it, basically. So that's what I really mean, I think. If you can afford to lose a job, you can be much stronger. You can stand firm on your price when it starts to get into a negotiating situation.
So marketing is one of those, I suppose, conversations that, we could probably spend months on talking about.
Days on, yeah, really.
Yeah. I think, fundamentally, though, to me, what it sounds like, what you're sort of kind of representing here is even bigger than marketing. I mean, it sounds more like it's the brand, it's understanding, really what your values are, who you are, what the brand of the company is, and all that kind of stuff. And that's a big disconnect. I mean, we obviously deal with that, very daily.
Yeah.
People not understanding the difference between, their brand, like branding and marketing.
Or people just not really doing it much, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Much at all. Yeah.
That's right. But I mean, marketing is such a broad term these days, and there's so many variables that can come into play when we sort of start going down that path. However, I think it's important for the listeners out there to appreciate that, fundamentally when we're talking marketing, it's, even if you're a one-man band, it's really about understanding who you are, who your customers are, and the message you're portraying, what your values are, so they can understand, the type of business that you are, and then everything will kind of stem from that.
Totally. I totally agree with you.
And not the other way around.
Yeah. I've used different words in my program, but I talk about doing your marketing groundwork, which is exactly what you just said. Who are we? What do we do? Why are we good? Who do we do it for? What's our target market?
Yeah.
And I encourage people to be a bit specific, just like we talked about me being specific and niching as a business coach for trades and builders. Your average tradie should be a bit specific. It's no use being a builder saying, I'll build everything for everybody.
Yep.
Like you said yourself, you're not really anything to anybody. You've got to build something specific.
There's a lot more power in, pardon the pun, but understanding if you can niche yourself. I was talking about this from stage on Friday at the Trading Mate Pro event, and we were talking about how if you can really hone in on being the expert in a certain area in your business, it will help you get the foot in the door, and which will enable you to cross-sell and upsell and promote other services and offerings that you may also do. It doesn't mean you only have to do that product. It just means that by focusing on that and trying to become the expert in that, you've got a better chance of getting your foot in the door.
I think so. It makes your marketing a lot more meaningful.
Yeah.
I always think that customers, particularly for trades, I'll talk in terms of trades, particularly for trades, we kind of know what trade we want, right?
Right.
Or we've got a particular need or a problem that we want solved. I want an extension, or I want a new fence, or whatever it is, right? And we know what that is. So we're going to look for on a website, does this company do what I want? Mm-hmm. And do they do it for people like me? And we're looking at that real quick, right? And then we kind of go to, are they any good? And there's a little sort of flow of thinking that people do. So if you don't answer those questions quite quick, you're going to miss out, because we're quite lazy and we lose interest quickly on the internet, don't we? Particularly, but in a marketing sense, we do. So that, like you said, that's if you don't know that, and if you won't decide and commit to who you are and who you do it for, you're in bad shape from day one. So that's one of the first things I get people doing, and then I send them off to people like you and say, you need to build your website properly, and you need to do your marketing to attract those sorts of people and tell them what you do.
It's funny, people will typically come to us, for marketing without really understanding what they're looking for. And it's sometimes a refreshing revelation to them to learn that they may never even have to go down what they have considered marketing in the space of, I need to be spending heaps of money on ads, and I need to be running, putting ads in newspapers and all this kind of stuff. By smart marketing is a lot is basically understanding how you can apply some of your resources, be that financial or be that time, whatever it might be, into assets that you've already created in order to generate a higher conversion off a given campaign. And we see time and time again, just simply helping people implement a re-engagement campaign with their existing customers has formidable results in comparatively to what a Google Ads campaign may deliver.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. People who already know you and already understand you are always easier to attract, aren't they?
So that brings us to the next one, right? Understanding.
Yeah, it does, and it's kind of it's a leap off from there. Nice segue. Yeah, you got to understand the value that you bring to your customers. So we started off by saying, what do you do and why are you good? But the value that you bring to your customers is really important, right? A trades business is not just a trade business. There are good ones and bad ones. There are ones who will be fast. There are ones who will take lots of care. There are ones who will put the best ever finish you could imagine. There are ones who are cheap. There are ones who are expensive. Nobody's ever all of them. So you've got to think about, dig a bit more deeper about what value you bring to these people, to your customers.
Okay, so what sort of framework do you typically follow in that space?
I asked them to think about what sets you apart. So you think about why you're different. You think about why you're good. And you think about how you compare to other trade. You tell a few stories. Compare yourself to the bad trades. Who are the ones who undercut you on price? Who are the ones who give your industry a bad name? Who are the ones on 60 Minutes or Current Affair? Mm. We've all seen those guys, right? In the nick a drawer or stealing stuff or, disappearing broke before the end of a job, all that stuff, right? This from consumers, they're genuinely concerned about that stuff. All over the telly. For businesses, not so much, and they're not so easily manipulated, but they still have concerns, right? Everyone's afraid of hiring a bad trade or a bad builder and having it not go very well. Yep. Everyone's afraid of jeopardizing their project or, missing their deadlines or it costing them money or losing trade or whatever. So there's definitely a lot of risk in selecting a trade business. And there's a lot of ways a trade business can allay those people's fears, right? Those customers' fears, or mitigate that risk for them. You can build trust, you can build relationships, you can prove that you're low risk by demonstrating why you're low risk, why you're good, right? You can give testimonials, you can give references, you can show your insurance, you can show your process and how that works, you can show how structured and organized you are, right? There are many ways you can prove the value you bring. You've got to start by understanding what it is and getting some clarity around it so you can explain it to somebody. And then you've got to have some proofs behind you so you can back it up with genuine information. So
as relevant as it is to say understanding is power, I'm hearing it's, and it's certainly my experience, that it's as relevant, if not more relevant, to understand how to communicate it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. And in my program, we plan a lot of that. We script it even,
Right.
We script questions to ask and we script things we want to tell them, not script entirely, but we make notes of things we want to tell the customers in the sales process.
Yeah.
We build a neat thing, or we'll be on time, or, we look at the specific fears that are important to someone's industry. I know a lot of people who hire plumbers and electricians and the like worry that they'll be left hanging having taken half a day off work for someone not to show up.
Right.
Right. That's a common fear, in the consumer part of the market. And if a tradie can say, on the website, in the marketing, or in their sales process, when the person's making an appointment, we will actually show up, and they can reassure them along the way. I think that sort of stuff counts for a lot,
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm giving that as an example, right? But, there are lots of things that can go wrong, and there are lots of things that people are concerned about or afraid of. And it's up to you to understand the ones that are relevant to your business and your customers, and then explain to your customers why that's not the case here and why you're different and better.
So it's something that we see a lot in, and I won't say just trades. I think it's pretty common with a lot of businesses out there, is that they just really drop the ball when it comes to successfully communicating, period. So whether that's through, the work they can do, whether it's through case studies, testimonials, or whatever that might be, whether that's through communications.
Most kind of don't, right?
Yeah, or even, project managing. We've got a couple of clients that do this really well, like builder clients, that have a really good process around keeping their customers in the loop throughout stages of projects, which I think is fantastic. And there's a lot of technology now, by the way, which can also which can also help facilitate that. However, that sort of thing really does put people at ease. I mean, even for us with our marketing campaigns, although admittedly 99% of our clients that we're running marketing for couldn't care less about the going through and reading the reports, they still appreciate being sent a tutorial, giving them an overview of a month's progress.
Yeah, they like to know where their money's going and what they're getting for it.
Well, I mean, just something that sort of justifies it, I mean, at the end of the day, the reports are the reports. But I mean, no one really understands the reports anyway, like from a client perspective. I mean, you look at all these numbers and figures and so on, people, it just pays to take the time to break it down and say, what went well, what didn't, and what's going to be worked on,
Yeah, totally.
And I think that's really important as well when you translate that across to the service industry. Understanding what your customers are probably thinking and how you can address those scenarios before they arise is going to be a powerful tool in your arsenal.
Yeah, totally. I'll take it back to the point I made at the start. A lot of times what happens is you walk into a sales situation, your customer says, "Great, thanks for coming. Can you give me a quote for this?" And you're being a nice sort of helpful person that you are, you usually say yes. And what happens is somebody will roll into a kind of a technical discussion or a solutioning discussion, let me figure out what you need and I'll start measuring and I'll price it up. Mm-hmm. And you neglect all the selling part. And this is the next topic of the next episode, really, is to how to have a process in your sales that you do communicate all that stuff. What I've found from coaching lots of people through this is they're not incapable of doing it, right? I'm not coaching people who don't know how to do this or who can't communicate. I'm just people who hadn't really considered that you need to do that stuff, didn't know.
Yeah.
Natural people naturally do what the customer asks. And you know why customers ask you for a quote, don't you? Because it's all they know.
Right.
It's all they know what to ask for, isn't it? What else do you say to a tradie?
Right.
No one says, how can you help me solve this problem? Or what do you think the right thing to do is, do they? They all want to feel important and in control. So they say, give me a quote for this, would you?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's all a bit macho, isn't it? Yeah. So, I find my customers don't find it hard to slip into this. It's just a matter of changing and systematizing, right? Writing it down, making decisions before. So this episode was about doing all that preparation. And that's my last one. Preparation is power. Do all this homework beforehand so that you go into your sales discussions prepared. You've got the knowledge. You've got enough marketing going on. So you've got leads up your sleeve. You understand the value so you can explain it and you've prepared. You're not winging it, only knowing a price and a tape measure.
Love it. So for the listeners out there, you've just been listening to episode 1 of the Ethical Sales Delivering Healthy Margins series that I'm conducting with my co-host for this series, Mr. Jon Dale from Small Fish Coaching. If you want to get in touch with Jon, you can do so over at smallfish.com.au or social media at smallfish_coach. Jon has generously left behind his big numbers tracker, which is going to be a reporting spreadsheet dashboard, which is going to be available through either the show notes and or the resource section of the SiteShed website, which is /resources. And apart from that, Jon, I think we'll wrap this episode up and we'll come back with part 2, where we're going to be talking a little bit more, as you just mentioned, about the process behind sales.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt.
Sound good?
Yes, it does.
Okay, that is a wrap. Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to the siteshed.com, where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from the show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.